For thousands of years, the land we now call Mexico has been shaped by migrations, empires, conquests, revolutions, and extraordinary civilizations. This is the story of how a wilderness became the center of some of humanity's greatest achievements and one of the world's most vibrant nations. In this documentary, you'll witness the rise of the Olmecs, the brilliance of the Maya, the power of Teotihuacán, and the unstoppable expansion of the Mexica. You'll see how the arrival of the Spanish transformed everything, leading to centuries of struggle, independence movements, and the revolutionary forces that reshaped the country forever. If you love history, ancient mysteries, and real stories of resilience, don't skip this video, because Mexico's past is filled with astonishing moments that the world needs to know.
Around 30 millennia ago, long before pyramids rose from the jungles and great cities lined the valleys of Mesoamerica, the land that would one day become Mexico was a vast and untouched wilderness. Its deserts were harsher, its forests thicker, and its climate colder than today. Into this landscape came the first humans, small bands of hunter-gatherers who had crossed the now submerged land bridge known as Beringia, linking Asia to North America during the last ice age. Their journey was not a single migration, but a slow, generational drift, following herds of mammoths, bison, and ancient camels across an unknown world. These early people lived in constant motion. Their shelters were temporary, built of branches, hides, or whatever the land allowed. Survival depended entirely on their ability to read the landscape, to know when herds would move, where water might pool after winter melt, and which plants could be eaten or used as medicine. Every step southward brought new challenges, mountain chains, shifting climates, and unfamiliar predators. Yet each obstacle forced innovation. They crafted stone tools with increasing precision, learned new hunting strategies, and began to understand the seasonal rhythms of this fertile new world. Eventually, some groups reached the region we now call Mexico. What they found was breathtaking in its diversity. Jagged mountain ranges covered in pines, tropical forests humming with life, volcanic valleys rich in obsidian, and sprawling deserts where life clung to the edges of arid plains. This rich mosaic of ecosystems allowed human communities to grow, specialize, and adapt in unique ways. Over thousands of years, these nomadic bands slowly began to settle. They experimented with early cultivation, managing wild plants, and gradually shaping the first agricultural knowledge. These humble beginnings laid the foundations for the great civilizations to come. The seeds of maize, beans, and squash, plants slowly domesticated by these early inhabitants, would one day support millions and become the heart of Mesoamerican culture. From this long prehistoric chapter, a new age would emerge, the rise of organized societies, cities, religion, and cultural identity. The long journey of the first humans had reached its destination. Now, the story of civilization could begin.
As millennia passed, the scattered groups of early inhabitants began to transition from nomadic life to more permanent settlements. This radical shift, from wandering hunters to stable communities, was driven by the slow but revolutionary development of agriculture. The domestication of maize, beans, squash, and chili peppers allowed families to remain in one place long enough for culture to take root. Villages grew into towns, and towns evolved into ceremonial centers. Over time, these developments blossomed into complex societies that would shape the identity of ancient Mexico. The rise of these civilizations did not occur all at once. Instead, it unfolded in waves, each culture building upon the innovations of the last. Early farming communities learned to manipulate the land through irrigation, terracing, and soil management. With stable food supplies, population growth led to the division of labor. Some became farmers, others artisans, traders, or spiritual leaders. Religion became central, offering explanations for natural forces, rain, sun, wind, and fertility, while fostering rituals that unified the people. Trade routes expanded across mountains and forests, linking distant groups. Jade, obsidian, feathers, and seashells began to move between communities, carrying with them ideas, technologies, and shared artistic styles. Gradually, these exchanges produced the first true civilizations, societies with writing, calendars, monumental architecture, advanced astronomy, and organized governance. Regional differences shaped cultural diversity. In the humid Gulf Coast lowlands, figures carved from jade reflected spiritual power. In the highlands of Oaxaca, early political structures began to form. In the Yucatan lowlands, the earliest pyramid foundations were laid. Each region contributed its own innovations, weaving together a cultural tapestry that made Mesoamerica one of the most sophisticated regions of the ancient world. By 1500 BC, these developments reached a tipping point. The first major civilization, known today as the Olmecs, emerged from the tropical wetlands. Their cities, religion, and artistic style would influence every culture that followed. From this foundation, the great civilizations of Mexico would rise. The Maya with their writing and astronomy, the Zapotecs with their political organization, the builders of Teotihuacán with their monumental pyramids, and the Mexica who would forge an empire from an island in a lake. What began as scattered farming villages had become the cradle of Mesoamerican civilization. The ancient world of Mexico was rising.
The story of Mesoamerican civilization truly begins with the Olmecs, a culture that emerged around 1500 BC along the swampy Gulf Coast in what is now Veracruz and Tabasco. The environment here was both challenging and rich. Dense rainforests, winding rivers, and fertile floodplains. These landscapes nurtured one of the earliest and most influential civilizations in the Americas. The Olmecs built great ceremonial centers long before the Maya or Aztecs existed. San Lorenzo, their earliest major site, rose above the wetlands on an artificially leveled plateau. It housed rulers, priests, artisans, and farmers who supplied food to the elite. Later, the site of La Venta became their most iconic capital, dominated by a massive earthen pyramid, one of the oldest monumental structures in Mesoamerica. Surrounding it were plazas, platforms, and altars arranged with astronomical precision. What set the Olmecs apart was their artistic genius. Their colossal basalt heads, some weighing over 20 tons, remain among the most striking creations of the ancient world. Each head represents a ruler, with distinct facial features suggesting individual identities. Moving such massive stones across rivers and forests required engineering skill, organization, and political authority. Jade masks, feline-human hybrid sculptures, and intricate ceremonial objects reveal a deeply symbolic worldview. Religion was central to Olmec life. The jaguar, revered as a powerful supernatural force, appears repeatedly in their art. Mythic creatures with human and animal features likely represented deities or shamans in transformative states. Rituals, offerings, and bloodletting played major roles in their relationship with the divine. The Olmecs' economy was supported by agriculture, especially maize, and extensive trade networks. They exchanged jade, obsidian, iron ore, and seashells across distant regions, spreading their influence into Central America and the Mexican highlands. Through trade, their ideas flowed outward. Writing symbols, calendar concepts, ceremonial architecture, and religious beliefs found in later cultures all hint at Olmec origins. Though their language remains unknown
and their political structure somewhat mysterious, the Olmecs shaped the foundations of Mesoamerican civilization. When their centers declined around 400 BC, their cultural legacy lived on, echoing through the Maya, Zapotecs, and Mexica. They were, in every sense, the mother culture of ancient Mexico.
In the centuries following the decline of the Olmecs, new powers emerged across Mesoamerica. In Oaxaca's valleys, the Zapotecs founded Monte Alban, one of the earliest planned cities in the Americas. Built atop an artificially flattened hilltop, Monte Alban offered sweeping views of the surrounding valleys, both a strategic and symbolic choice. Its plazas, temples, ball courts, and carved stone monuments reflected a society with strong leadership, complex religious ceremonies, and an early writing system. To the southeast, in the tropical lowlands, the Maya civilization blossomed into an advanced and intellectually sophisticated world. Their achievements in astronomy, mathematics, and writing were unmatched in ancient America. Maya scribes carved historical records into stone monuments, recorded myths in codices, and built cities aligned with celestial events. Centers like Tikal, Palenque, and Chichen Itza featured massive pyramids, palaces, sacred cenotes, and observatories. Their calendar system, featuring the long count and the sacred 260-day cycle, demonstrated mathematical precision comparable to that of ancient civilizations across the globe. Meanwhile, in central Mexico, a vast metropolis rose seemingly from nowhere, Teotihuacán, the city of the gods. At its height, between 100 BC and AD 600, it was one of the largest cities in the world, home to over 125,000 people. Its monumental structures, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, were arranged along the Avenue of the Dead in a grand urban design that reflected both cosmology and political power. Teotihuacan was a multi-ethnic city where Zapotec, Maya, Otomi, and other groups lived in distinct neighborhood compounds. Its economy thrived on trade, especially obsidian, which was crafted into blades and ritual objects prized across Mesoamerica. Its murals, painted in vibrant reds and blues, reveal a society steeped in ritual symbolism and governed by powerful elites, or perhaps a collective ruling class. Together, these civilizations created a network of political, economic, and cultural exchange that transformed Mesoamerica. Their legacies, writing, astronomy, monumental architecture, and complex governance would shape the civilizations yet to come. Long before the Aztecs rose to power, another civilization dominated central Mexico. The Toltecs, centered in the city of Tula between AD 650 and 1200. Their influence stretched across Mesoamerica, shaping the mythology, religion, and political ideals of later cultures. Tula was a city of warriors. Its temples were adorned with images of eagles, jaguars, and armed figures. Most iconic were the Atlanteans, colossal stone warrior pillars that once supported the roof of the temple of Tlahuizcalpantecutli, associated with the feathered serpent deity Quetzalcoatl. These figures, with elaborate headdresses and decorated breastplates, symbolized both military power and sacred authority. Toltec society was highly stratified, dominated by a warrior elite and a powerful priesthood. Their economy depended on agriculture, craft production, and long-distance trade. They were skilled workers of obsidian, turquoise, and metal. Turquoise mosaics, feathered costumes, and fine pottery demonstrate their mastery of luxury goods that traveled across Mesoamerica. Mythically, the Toltecs became legends. Centuries later, the Aztecs would claim descent from them, seeing the Toltecs as the pinnacle of artistic, philosophical, and political achievement. The figure of Topiltzin Quetzalcoatl,
a priest-king associated with wisdom, morality, and cultural refinement, emerged as a central hero in later mythology. Stories of his conflict with the dark deity Tezcatlipoca and his eventual exile shaped Aztec ideas about rulership and destiny. However, Tula eventually fell due to drought, internal strife, and the arrival of northern groups like the Chichimecas. Yet the Toltec legacy lived on. Their architectural styles, colonnaded halls, serpent motifs, and warrior imagery spread into the Maya region and influenced cities like Chichen Itza. Their religious traditions shaped the cult of Quetzalcoatl, which would later play a vital role in the Mexica worldview. The Toltecs may have declined, but their cultural shadow stretched far into the future. They were remembered not merely as a civilization, but as the ideal of what a civilization should be.
The Mexica, later known as the Aztecs, were a nomadic people searching for a prophesied homeland. According to their legend, their patron god, Huitzilopochtli, instructed them to settle where they found an eagle perched on a cactus devouring a serpent. That sign appeared on an island in Lake Texcoco, and there in 1325 they founded Tenochtitlan, one of the most extraordinary cities of the ancient world. Tenochtitlan grew rapidly. Its engineers built causeways, canals, aqueducts, and the ingenious Chinampa farming system, floating gardens that produced abundant crops year-round. Markets like Tlatelolco bustled with goods from every corner of Mesoamerica: obsidian blades, cacao beans, feathers, textiles, ceramics, and precious metals. Mexica society was hierarchical and militaristic. At the top stood the Tlatoani, the supreme ruler who commanded armies and presided over religious ceremonies. Nobles, priests, warriors, artisans, merchants, and commoners formed a structured society tied to tribute and strict laws. The Mexica expanded through warfare, forming alliances like the famous Triple Alliance with Texcoco and Tlacopan. Their empire grew to dominate central Mexico, ruling over millions and demanding tribute in food, textiles, jade, and labor. Religion permeated every aspect of life. Their pantheon included Huitzilopochtli, god of the sun and war, Tlaloc, rain, Quetzalcoatl, wisdom, and countless others. Human sacrifice, though shocking to outsiders, was believed necessary to maintain cosmic balance and ensure the sun's daily rebirth. Ceremonies were held atop towering pyramids with priests dressed in vibrant feathers and ornate masks. At its height, Tenochtitlan was a marvel of urban planning and cultural sophistication, larger than most European capitals of its time. But in 1519, the arrival of Hernán Cortés and his indigenous allies would change everything. Through diplomacy, deception, alliances, disease, and war, the Mexica Empire would face its greatest challenge, ending in dramatic collapse just 2 years later. But before the fall, the Mexica built a world of tremendous complexity, an empire forged by ambition, belief, and power. In 1519, Hernán Cortés set foot on the shores of Mexico with just over 500 men, a handful of horses, and a burning desire for wealth and glory. His arrival set off a chain of events unlike anything the continent had seen. Early encounters were tense. The Totonacs and later the Tlaxcalans, long oppressed by the Mexica Empire, allied with the Spaniards. Cortés's strategy was clear. He would use indigenous rivalries to dismantle a powerful empire from within. Two key figures shaped this encounter. One was Jerónimo de Aguilar, a Spaniard shipwrecked years earlier who spoke Mayan. The other was Malintzin, La Malinche, a Nahua woman who became Cortés's translator, cultural mediator, and advisor. Through her, Cortés gained unprecedented access to political dynamics within the Mexico world. When Cortés reached Tenochtitlan in November 1519, Moctezuma II received him peacefully.
The Spaniards were astonished. The city shimmered with white palaces, canals, floating gardens, and bustling markets. Bernal Díaz del Castillo, a conquistador, later wrote, "We were amazed and said it was like the enchantments of a tale." But diplomacy soon collapsed. Fearing rebellion, Cortés seized Moctezuma as a political hostage. When Cortés left the city temporarily, his lieutenant Pedro de Alvarado committed a massacre during a religious festival, sparking a massive uprising. The Spaniards fled during the tragic event known as La Noche Triste, losing hundreds of men. Regrouping with their indigenous allies, Cortés launched a brutal siege on Tenochtitlan in 1521. The blockade cut off food, fresh water, and medical aid. Disease, especially smallpox introduced by Europeans, ravaged the population. Street by street, canal by canal, the city fell. On August 13, 1521, the last Mexica Tlatoani, Cuauhtémoc, was captured. The once magnificent city lay in ruins. The Mexica Empire had collapsed, and from its ashes, a new era began, the Spanish colonial period known as New Spain.
New Spain, colonial order and transformation. After the fall of Tenochtitlan, Hernán Cortés and his men began rebuilding the city according to Spanish urban models. Tenochtitlan's temples were razed, and in their place rose cathedrals, government buildings, plazas, and administrative centers. The colony of New Spain was officially established, becoming one of the most important territories of the Spanish Empire. Colonial society was hierarchical and rigid. At the top were peninsulares, Spaniards born in Europe. Below them were criollos, Spaniards born in the Americas. Beneath them were mestizos, indigenous peoples and enslaved Africans. The caste system defined rights, occupations, and social mobility. The encomienda system allowed Spaniards to extract labor and tribute from indigenous communities in exchange for protection and religious instruction. In practice, it led to severe exploitation. At the same time, epidemics like smallpox, measles, and influenza devastated the indigenous population, reducing it by up to 90% within a century. Entire towns vanished, and survivors were reorganized into new settlements. Yet indigenous cultures did not disappear. Many communities preserved their languages, traditions, and knowledge systems. Others mixed with Spanish customs, creating new forms of art, cuisine, music, and spirituality. The economy of New Spain revolved around mining, especially silver. Cities such as Zacatecas and Guanajuato became global centers of silver extraction. Wealth flowed from New Spain to Spain, financing European wars and fueling global trade. Agriculture flourished through haciendas, ranching, and local markets. The Catholic Church became a powerful institution. Missionaries built schools, monasteries, and hospitals. They learned indigenous languages, translated texts, and sometimes defended native rights. But they also worked relentlessly to Christianize the population, often destroying temples and sacred objects. New Spain became a vibrant cultural melting pot. Baroque architecture, indigenous craftsmanship, and African musical rhythms blended into a unique colonial identity. For 3 centuries, this society evolved, rich in culture yet divided by racial and social inequalities. These tensions would eventually set the stage for revolution. Independence, Reform, and Revolution, 1810 to 1917. By the early 19th century, discontent simmered across New Spain. Economic inequality, racial divisions, and political restrictions pushed many to seek change. Enlightenment ideas and global revolutions, American, French, and Haitian, inspired Creoles and indigenous leaders alike. On September 16, 1810,
Father Miguel Hidalgo's cry for rebellion ignited the War of Independence. Joined by mestizos and indigenous communities, his movement surged across central Mexico before being suppressed. But the flame he ignited was unstoppable. Leaders like José María Morelos refined the cause, calling for equality, abolition of slavery, and the end of colonial rule. By 1821, internal changes in Spain and shifting alliances in Mexico allowed the movement to succeed. Agustín de Iturbide and Vicente Guerrero joined forces under the Plan de Iguala, achieving independence. But stability did not follow. The 19th century became one of Mexico's most turbulent eras. The First Empire collapsed, giving way to a federal republic. Political divides grew between liberals and conservatives. A series of conflicts reshaped the nation, including the Texas Secession, 1836, the Mexican-American War, 1446 to 1448, costing Mexico half its territory, the Reform War, 1857 to 1861, over church and state, the French Intervention, 1862 to 1867, and the brief reign of Emperor Maximilian. Benito Juárez eventually restored the republic, enacting liberal reforms and modernizing the state, but inequalities persisted. Under Porfirio Díaz, Mexico experienced economic growth, railroads, and modernization, at the cost of repression, land dispossession, and widening poverty. This fueled the Mexican Revolution of 1910, one of the century's defining social uprisings. Figures like Emiliano Zapata, Pancho Villa, and Venustiano Carranza fought for land, justice, and rights. The struggle reshaped the nation and led to the Constitution of 1917, which introduced labor rights, land reform, and national control of resources. The revolution marked the beginning of modern Mexico, a nation born from centuries of struggle.
Modern Mexico, from the 20th century to today. Following the revolution, Mexico embarked on a long period of reconstruction. Land reforms redistributed farmland to peasants. Education expanded, and national identity strengthened through art, music, and literature. The Institutional Revolutionary Party, PRI, emerged, dominating politics for much of the 20th century. From the 1940s to the 1970s, Mexico underwent rapid industrialization in a period known as the Mexican Miracle. Urbanization accelerated, factories grew, and new infrastructure connected the nation. But inequality remained high, and by the 1960s, political tensions led to conflicts such as the 1968 student movement, tragically repressed in Tlatelolco. The late 20th century brought economic crises, currency devaluations, and shifting political reforms. In 1994, the Zapatista uprising in Chiapas and the signing of NAFTA marked new chapters in Mexico's political and economic evolution. The year 2000 ended 71 years of PRI rule when Vicente Fox of the PAN became president, ushering in democratic transitions. Presidents Calderón, Peña Nieto, and later Andrés Manuel López Obrador faced challenges including corruption, cartel violence, and economic development. Modern Mexico is a nation shaped by resilience. Its culture, rooted in indigenous, European, and African traditions, remains vibrant. Its politics continue to evolve. Its people, shaped by thousands of years of history, continue to define the nation's course.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the epic history of Mexico.
From the first humans who walked this land, to the rise of ancient civilizations, the fall of empires, the battles for independence, revolution, and the making of the modern nation. If this documentary helped you understand Mexico's past in a deeper, clearer way, make sure to hit like because it truly helps the video reach more people. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into world history. And if you enjoyed this film, share it with someone who loves learning about ancient cultures, lost cities, and the stories that shaped our world. Tell us in the comments, which era of Mexico should we explore next? The Maya, the Mexica, the Revolution? Your suggestion might become our next documentary.